Okie dokie. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so happy to have you with us during what is our first in a series of targeted webinars focusing and digging a little bit deeper on some issues of practice that you might face over the course of the school year. Obviously, what's top of mind right now is getting started with students, as many of you are. I noticed in the chat that several people posted that they have a mixture of remote learning. Some people have a hybrid model where folks are teaching remotely and have some in-class time. And so lots of different contexts going on. So hopefully we can give you some help and provide some inspiration through our teacher presentations today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So today is our Getting the Best Start with Students and Families in Class and from a Distance, featuring experienced ASSISTments users. So that's going to be our topic today. A few quick notes on etiquette. Please make sure that your microphone is on mute. You can also elect to turn on or off your video in the bottom left corner. And also feel free to use the chat in the Zoom throughout to capture any questions you might have in general and also for our specific presenters. Today's goal is that participants will learn valuable classroom practices from experienced ASSISTments users and gain concrete ideas for getting a strong start this year in the classroom and from a distance. To meet this goal, here's our agenda. We're going to start with just a brief overview of ASSISTments and some introductions. I know that we have very experienced users with us today, people who have kind of just gotten started, and we also have brand new users who haven't even had a chance to get started yet. So we'll do a quick overview. Then we're going to dive into some awesome presentations from our experienced users and follow that up with a Q&A. Once we've had a chance to go through some of those questions and that people are asking, we'll go over some additional resources and supports that are available to you, and then we will wrap up for the day. So my name is Brian Story. I'm one of the teacher engagement managers here at ASSISTments. But prior to this position, I taught for 10 years in DC public schools and also Norfolk public schools in Virginia. And so I'm happy and excited, as always, to bring my knowledge and expertise to the table and in the service of helping teachers and families, especially during this challenging time. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dawn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Peterson. I'm also a teacher engagement manager at the ASSISTments Foundation. I taught for 14 years, 8th grade math here in Massachusetts. Shout out to all my Massachusetts people in the house. I could see you saying hello in the chat. And so now I'm offering a lot of support to teachers, and I'll be your chat moderator today. So any questions that come in as people are presenting or just about the ASSISTments product in general, please throw those in there and I'll be happy to capture those and help.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dawn. I also have to mention there that I'm based out of Durham, North Carolina. So a shout out to all of our North Carolina teachers, or teachers from the surrounding region who joined us today. Welcome, welcome. So a quick overview of ASSISTments. ASSISTments is a forever free tool that allows you to enhance your curriculum that you're already using in a way that gives students immediate feedback and gives you a ton of data that you can use to decide next steps with your students. We work and integrate seamlessly with Google Classroom and Canvas such that we can support the hybrid learning that many of you are engaging in with your students right now. Just a sort of overview, many of you may have already seen our 4 steps of ASSISTments. Step 1 is creating an assignment for students by selecting problems. Step 2 is assisting students through immediate feedback as they're answering their problems. Step 3 is assessing class performance by looking at that assignment report. And step 4 is analyzing answers together with your students, sharing some of that key data and what steps you plan on taking to assist them. Why ASSISTments? We have a Tier 1 rating by Evidence for ESSA, and we're one of only 3 middle school math intervention tools with that kind of strong evidence. This is based on research that we did in a randomized control study in Maine, and where we found that teachers that were using ASSISTments, their students gained 2/3 of a year in additional math learning, and their students also were able to narrow the achievement gap. So students coming in with fewer knowledge or less knowledge and fewer skills were able to show more growth than the average student compared to classrooms that were using existing methods. If I could ask, I hear a little bit of noise in the background, so just make sure that you're muted. We really appreciate that. And so with that, I'll go ahead and sort of set up our teacher presenters. So we have some wonderful ASSISTments teacher presenters today. Just a reminder that we're focused on getting a strong start. We know that lots of folks have already started the school year. Some folks are about to get started, and that our over 11,000 users are kind of navigating all sorts of uncertainties and a range of new expectations due to COVID, many of you having to implement some kind of hybrid learning model. And so hopefully today, through our presentations from our experienced users, we can help to inspire you and help you to figure out how ASSISTments best fits and best serves you and your students and families in this context. So I just want to share a bit of information about our teacher presenters. So first up today, we're going to have Barbara Scriven, and she's a 7th grade math teacher at Capital Encore Academy in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Again, whoop, whoop, North Carolina. Holly Hudson is an 8th grade math teacher at Charlotte Middle School in Charlotte, North Carolina on the coast. And Joaquin Pena is a 7th grade math teacher at Centennial Middle School in Yuma, Arizona. So we have a teacher from out west today as well. Before we get into the teacher presentations, just a little bit of expectation setting. As teachers are presenting, you can feel free to chat any questions, wonderings, or ideas that come to mind as you listen. Feel free to include the name of the presenter if you'd like a specific presenter to speak on a particular question. Our chat moderator, Dawn, is going to track those questions and sort of share the big themes that she's seeing in those questions so that presenters have a chance to respond to what you're asking about. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Barbara.
Hi, so as Brian stated, my name is Barbara Scriven. I work at the Capital Encore Academy. It is a public arts integrated charter school. We serve grades kindergarten through 8th. It's a very diverse population, and we have a strong belief in integrating arts into our curriculum. And we are located in Fayetteville, North Carolina, in the heart of downtown on Hay Street. We went virtual back in March, just like most of you guys, because of COVID and the schools closing. Upon returning, we were talking about an A-B schedule where one cohort would go to school Mondays and Wednesdays, and then the first and third Fridays. And then the next group would go to school Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the second and fourth Friday, and teachers would be there 5 days a week. But our board voted a week before opening that we should just do the first 6 weeks virtually. So we're starting off the school year virtually up until September. So how I typically used ASSISTments before COVID was I used it daily. So I used ASSISTments every day. I was a firm believer in math homework. And so I would teach my standards. So let's say I was teaching equations and inequalities, and then I would assign an ASSISTments equations and inequalities practice for homework. Once students completed it, I would review the report. And then the next day when students came into class, the first thing that they did when we came in, I would post the report on my smartboard. Obviously, I would hide the students' names, but we would focus on the percentages and the question with the lowest percent. So if there was 5 questions and I saw that maybe 2 of the questions had a 20% or 30% students getting it correct, those would be the 2 questions that I would go over with the class. And I would also try to focus on the box where it shows me maybe 60% of the students answered question B. So I would definitely have to address that misconception and understand why they were answering question B. So that's what it would look like the very next day after the assignment. But that became a problem for me once we were out of school because I no longer had the opportunity to do that whole class report, addressing those misconceptions with those students because we no longer had face-to-face instruction. I also started having an issue with my parent communication because parents were seeing that students weren't performing well and they wanted kind of updates on how the students were doing, but it was hard for me to give students and parents that feedback right away without me having that face-to-face interaction. So I had to switch up the way that I was using ASSISTments. So when we went virtual, I started using ASSISTments as my independent practice. And what that did for me was it allowed me to see in the process, before I got to my assessments and my quizzes, what students were struggling with those standards. So then it allowed me to shoot a Dojo message to the parent or a Google Chats or Google Meets with that student and say, hey, I noticed you only scored a 30% on today's independent practice. Is there anything you need me to re-explain? Can we have a one-on-one? So that way we didn't wait till 2 and 3 weeks in and then they're totally missing the whole standard. It also allowed me to talk to parents like, hi, I noticed that Johnny has done 3 of these practices. He's constantly not performing well. Can we have a tutoring session every Tuesday or every Wednesday? And so I noticed with that our students' progress went up dramatically towards the end when I kept doing that. The way my main use of communication for parents is Class Dojo. So even starting out introducing ASSISTments, ASSISTments has a parent letter on their website. And so I posted that parent letter on Class Dojo. It informed the parents about ASSISTments, a little bit about what to expect. I also use Class Dojo when I'm sharing student data with the parents to help them understand student progress. So this is an example of the parent letter that I used. As you can see, it kind of gives a brief overview of ASSISTments. And then it shows a little bit about how the students can use ASSISTments. And then I like the fact that it showed the symbols to parents about students' work ethic, and then it shows exactly what each symbol means. So this is an example of the way that I would communicate reports to parents via Class Dojo. So good morning, I wanted to give you a little more insight. So when I say Susie, I'm just gonna say Susie, does not put her best effort into her work, this is the report from the independent practice we are currently working on. It shows that she answered the question in 4 seconds, then asked for the answer. In an effort to correct, I'm going to delete her progress and have her do it again and take her time. I will update you on how that goes. So this was a little note on how I can get parents to understand how it's hard for me to gauge the child's understanding if they just answer the question in 4 seconds or if they're just clicking to give them the answer. So this allowed the parent to get more involved, and it also gave me a lot of support in making sure that my students were walking through the problems and doing their very best the first time. So this was my favorite report to share with students. I had one student and me and her mom had conferences. I think we had maybe 3 conferences, and she just was not giving any effort. She just didn't care. And mom was frustrated. We both were frustrated. She wasn't performing well in class. So when I assigned it to her, this was my way of actually showing mom, because she could see the times. So you can see like the first question she answered in 1 minute and 38 seconds, and then she just asked for the answer. Then you can see further down in 14, she answered the question in 14 seconds and she answered it incorrectly. And then she only took 1 minute and 20 seconds. So this was my way of showing mom exactly what she's doing, how much time she's spending, what effort she's taking. So then when I can actually meet with her and say, hey, can I monitor her doing this? Or maybe can I give her a skill builder that she can work on this standard? And this helped me communicate with the parents. So then she was able to intervene, and we both got her back on track. So this was the way that I used ASSISTments, and I hope that these were helpful for you guys.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That was fantastic. Really appreciate you sharing your perspective with the variety of folks who are watching today. Just a quick note for folks that have questions, feel free to go ahead and chat those questions, wonderings, or ideas based on what Barbara just shared. And our chat moderator will sort of track those and share the big thematic questions when we get to our Q&A. A couple of quick follow-up questions, Barbara. What were the most common, or what are the most common resources you like to go to immediately in ASSISTments, just to give teachers an idea of what?
So I loved the folder with the SchoolNet questions, because my school liked for our students to practice SchoolNet questions. So I had access to, there was a bunch of SchoolNet practices. Mm-hmm. And so and it had so many resources. I used to use Khan Academy, but I found that it didn't have specific standards, whereas ASSISTments, you can see the exact standard. So it was easier for me to assign. And I also like the fact that if I needed to upload my curriculum textbook, which was Singapore Math, that I could use that as well to help my students practice for homework.
Excellent. And last follow-up question, your favorite report to share with when you're having those conferences with parents and students, was that the assignment report or the student details report? Which of those do you prefer to use?
I prefer the student details reports because I want to keep it focused on that exact student. So if the issue is a lack of effort, then that can show. If I need to address a student struggling and it shows the student is taking 10 minutes to perform a question, then I use that. And so it gives the parents a clear view of exactly the number of attempts it's taking the child, the number of minutes it's taking them to even start a prompt. And it's also giving me an idea of what I need to do to try to assist them.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Barbara. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Holly.
And Brian, before you do that, sorry, Holly, a couple people were asking in the chat whether they're going to get a recording and the slide deck so they can review this after. And the answer is yes, you will get a follow-up email so you can review the slide deck and watch the recording at your leisure.
Thank you so much, Dawn, for reminding us about that. Yes, everybody's going to get, who's in attendance today, will get a follow-up email with our recording and slide deck. Thank you so much. All right, Holly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Holly Hudson. I teach at Charlotte Middle School. It's a public school located in Brunswick County on the coast of North Carolina. We serve 642 students, 6th through 8th grade. I teach math, 8th grade math and Math 1. 65% of our students receive free and reduced lunch. Our school plan during COVID, so far, we are 4.5 weeks remote. Teachers come to work on a daily basis, and we hold Zoom meetings with children for at least 10 minutes. Sometimes they run a little bit longer. So we have a Core 1, Core 2, Core 3, Core 4 schedule. The kids get a break for lunch, and then we have an encore, and then I have like a pride time or office hours where I have to answer children's questions and meet with them individually. How I use assessments, goodness, performative, summative assessments, small groups, individual activities, I do it all. It's wonderful. So I use it to differentiate instruction is wonderful through assessments, because you can find a group of kids that may be having the same issues and pull them off to the side. I would do that remotely by looking at the report and identifying a group of kids and inviting them in the afternoon during office hours to Zoom meetings so that we could go over individual problems that they may be having. Oh, the first week of instruction, I find it really, really hard to build relationship with children. They don't want to show me their face, and so I can't put their face with their name. And familiarizing the children with the tools that we use and how to get started with assessments has been, you know, just getting them familiar with what we're doing. I made an instructional video of myself, introducing myself to the children. I don't know if Brian's going to play it or not, but I just showed them the classroom, talked to them about who I was, showed them my family, and that was the basics of that so that they could get to know me. And then I asked them to give me a picture of themselves and tell me some of their favorite things, just so I could put their faces with their names.
Excellent. Oh, sorry about that.
You're fine. The first week with assessments is I always like to show the tutorial video to the children remotely. It's something that assessments came up with when we all back in March had to go remote. And it's wonderful to explain to children how to start it, how to click on it in Google. I use Google Classroom. I know that they have it for Canvas as well. And then I always do in the very beginning of the year, that practice learning set so that I can pull up the report and show the kids what I see on my end so that they know that if they just ask for the answer, I see that they're just asking for the answer. That first week of school on Wednesday, we are given a SchoolNet test just to see where the kids are. It's like a pre-assessment. That's something that's not assessments, but our county just makes us give a pre-test on SchoolNet. It's something we use in North Carolina. It's a testing website in North Carolina. With assessments, after I get that pre-test, I decide where I need to go with the children, and I start off by doing my mini lesson. Right now I'm recording all of my lessons and posting them on slides, and then I tell them, okay, go to assessments, or go to, I call it task 1 and task 2. Go to assessments, do this one, it's task 1. And then after that, I would probably, as an exit ticket, I communicate to the kids back and forth via email, via Zoom. And then when they're done, I'll do a skill builder as an exit ticket. And then I may decide the next day, if I have kids that are ahead, I may decide to go ahead and assign the next unit, or I may decide that they need another practice and decide that I'll assign set A or set B.
All right. So before we wrap up, Holly, just a quick follow-up question. How do you feel about, like, what is the importance of having a plan for that first week with assessments? Like, why is that important to you?
It's important to me to get students familiar and started with what we're going to be using and how I assess them throughout the year so that they understand what's in place for them and what they have to do in order to be successful in 8th grade math.
Excellent. And how early, when you start using assessments, how early do you start sharing data with students?
Oh, as soon as I get it. That's why you do that practice with the first one, and you pop it up, and even, you know, I can show it because I have a smart document camera. I just share my screen with them and I show it, and I love it because you can take the names off, and so they can see, you know, how the class did overall. And again, like Barbara said, I focus on those ones where the children have had issues with, and I don't go over the whole entire section that I have signed. I go over just the individual things that the children are having issues with.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Holly. Just a quick note again to those of you in attendance, if you have any questions for Holly or any wonderings or ideas that come up, feel free to share those in the chat. And Dawn will be keeping track of those so that we can share those questions with presenters during the Q&A. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Joaquin.
Good afternoon, guys. I know it says I'm from Yuma, Arizona, but I just want to let you guys know that I am originally from Massachusetts. I lived there my whole life. I just moved out here 7 years ago, so I'm on the team Massachusetts over there. My name is Joaquin Pina. I work at Centennial Middle School here in Yuma. I'm 7th grade math teacher. I teach special education, general education, and the gifted program. We serve largely low-income and Spanish-speaking students. We have over 800 students enrolled right now. Our school during the COVID-19 right now is all over the place, as you guys are as well. So our first day was July 30th until August 17th. We just did all virtual learning. And then with our governor, they said that we had to have some students to be on-site services for us to get some grants. So we have the services for families that don't have any Wi-Fi, so they can use their one-to-one devices. Students that have working parents that have nobody at home to watch their kids, or if their kids need help getting onto those assignments daily, and then students that need special education services. But we don't help them, they're still just on Zoom. So if the teacher is on campus, which some teachers wanted to be on campus, they're still at home right now. So if they're on campus, they can go to their classrooms and stay 6 feet apart. And then if their teachers aren't on campus, they just stay in the gym on a long table, 6 feet apart. To support my Use of illustrative math. I know some of you guys were writing in that you guys use IM. So I use assessments every day as just my main curriculum. So when they walk in, I already took all of the first questions off of the the practice assessments, and I made a keynote, and that's my do now. And I push that through assessments. And then I use my student tasks on IM as my lesson, and that's what we do for our breakout groups. And then they have a cool down at the end of the class. So I use it every day. That's my whole curriculum. So we do practice problems, skill builders at least twice a week, and then we do go through all the state testing, and I love to go back and see what Massachusetts is doing. How assessments data helps me. It allows me to share daily data with the students. It's easy to communicate how data drives my instruction, and it determines a clear high leverage next steps. So if you look at the top picture, this is one of the things I really love about assessments is it's not a right or wrong answer. It's for them to actually write their thoughts, and then they actually have a picture camera that you could take a picture of their work. So as they're working on a piece of paper, they can send in their notes as well. So you can see those misconceptions, which I love. And then on the bottom is one of the skill builders with the X's and the check marks that they can see right away, that immediate feedback. Okay, challenge with getting started. Acclimate students to receiving regular feedback given. Students have diverse needs, and they are all, for most part, they're learning virtually. So if they are struggling with Wi-Fi, if they don't have anybody to help them, if they just can't get on camera because some of their parents live in Mexico, and so we just have to make sure that we're not giving them too much, and each person understands that we're helping every student. Okay, this one was one of the big ones that we went over. When a student gets 2 out of 10 correct, for example, how do you show them and be respectful? So do you say you have a -8? Do you say you have a +2? When you speak to students, do you make sure that they all feel comfortable sharing their data? They want to talk about it. You build that culture within the classroom so they all want to share and they all want to push each other to do better. So what I do is I show the class average for if there's one big question that they're all struggling on, we work on that one, and then we break it down for individual. And then one of the quotes that I love to use is when one struggles, we all struggle. Teamwork makes the dream work. As you complete your assessment assignment, let them know that we will face challenges and that's okay. During the struggle, please ask your peers for help. And if you see somebody struggling, take a minute and, say, this is what I tried. This is what worked for me. This is, something that has helped me maybe in the past years, because in middle school, we're getting 6 different schools coming in from elementary. So they all have this great mixture of things, and it's really good for them to talk. So on the picture that I took, if you look in the middle column, it says me and my group discussed. So they had to discuss something before they put that in there. And then tip 3 is using prior to assessment data to decide which and how many questions I want to push out daily. And then what is going to be most effective to reteach individuals or a small group using assessments. So we go back to that picture that I had. And if you look at the highlighted, the one student, they asked for the answer. So they didn't even try. And then they wrote, I still don't understand and I still need help. So they're reaching out to you. So you can deliver that question to everybody because they all struggled on it. They only got 22% for the average, but that student is probably not reading the question correctly, or they're not even knowing where their entry point is.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Joaquin. Just one quick follow-up question. When you're looking at that data report on a daily, sometimes multiple data reports on a daily basis, maybe you only have a few minutes to do that before you decide what teacher moves you're going to take with your students to best support them. What are the quick pieces of data you always go to when you're looking at that data report?
I go right to the assignment data right away. It could be in the middle while they're working through it. I can just have them in breakout groups and jump on and say, okay, so this group is here, this group is here, so I can jump in. I know where they already are. And then I can go say, hey, let's take a step back. Like, some of you guys are really struggling with this, so let's pull it up. And what's great with assessments is if they get that question wrong and they can't go back and do it, they can still click on their assignment, and on the top, it'll show you that blue question, and they can dive into it again, and it'll show them if that it's right or wrong. So it kind of reteaches them why they're still working.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Joaquin. And just again, another reminder for folks in attendance, if you have any specific questions, ideas, or wonderings that you'd like Joaquin to respond to, go ahead and share those in the chat. Dawn will surface those in just a second when we get into our Q&A. So I'm going to leave up our pictures and descriptions just for folks' reference. But with this, I'll go ahead and have Dawn share some of the questions for our presenters. So Dawn's going to share some questions. She'll probably direct those at our individual presenters based on people's preferences in the chat. And then our presenters are just going to respond with their thoughts and what they think. So with that, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have questions that come up as the presenters are answering, please surface those in the chat. We had a lot of questions about using assessments, deleting progress, reading reports. I can tell that teachers' brains are going as they're listening to these three presenters. So one question that's for everyone, and I'll kind of pull you aside and identify you to answer one at a time, is can you describe a quick daily routine using assessments? So what does your routine look like to get started in the year? Why don't we start with Holly?
Daily routine is probably, if I gave an exit ticket, I'm going to look at the exit ticket and pull it up on the smart screen if I need to go over that with the children. Exit ticket sometimes will be 3 or 4 questions, and maybe identifying the areas that the children are having issues with. That's my opener as soon as they walk in the door. And then I'm going to teach my lesson like I normally teach my lesson. However you do it, virtually or online, your different schools have different ways of getting the information out there. And then when I'm done teaching my lesson, I normally like to do some type of classwork, but with group work. But with COVID, it's hard to get kids in groups, so I like to get kids talking. I use different websites like I can't think of it right now, but one of the whiteboards where the kids go in and put sticky notes on there. I don't know why I can't think of that site right now, but anyway, I use that for kids to go on and ask me questions and maybe talk to each other. You can use a Google Jamboard. Thank you. Somebody just said that. It came to me, Google Jamboard, with the little notes on there. Exactly. And then once I get a little group work done, I turn into doing an assessments practice. It can be 8 questions. It can be 10 questions. I normally don't like to go over 10 questions because it is a practice. I did notice that somebody asked about cheating. I tell my kids, we're all in this together. We're all practicing. If your partner, like Joaquin said, is having a hard time, then, help your partner. Work it together. Also, I always tell my kids, if you're stuck, if you miss a question, it's going to take off points. So you better ask me or you better ask somebody. And you just have to build that classroom culture with your children. Once you got that culture built, it works out beautifully. For March, for me, March was a lot easier because my children, I had assessments, my children knew assessments. I had been working with assessments for 2 years. And so it was like, it worked beautifully for me because they knew what I expected. And so that's my daily routine. And then I end with an exit ticket.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly. Yeah, and I think a lot of people have as you were talking, I think what my routine was in my classroom, and it was very similar. Barbara, anything different from what Holly said that you want to share about your classroom routine?
Yes, so the way I would start out, I do start out similar to Holly as far as, going over that report. And then typically I would go over that question and then I would teach my normal lesson. We would do some practice problems and then they would get that assignment at home for homework. So they would do whatever independent practice they had in class. So maybe sometimes that was because we used Singapore math as a textbook, and then we switched over to match fish tanks. So sometimes they may use match fish tanks in class, and then sometimes they may use a few problems out of the textbook. And then when they got home is when they would do the assessments practice. And then once they came back in, so we would start our day with assessments and then they would end their day with assessments.
Great, thank you. And Joaquin, you talked a little bit about that during your presentation, but want to do a quick recap?
Yeah, that's fine. So what I do is I use the IM curriculum, and I go on student task, and they always have one question that's in the beginning. We call it a do now, and I copied all those and I put it in a keynote. So if the kid's coming into class late or they have a excuse, they already know what we're working on, and we leave that up for about 5 minutes. And then we dive into that question. It could be like a number talk. Some of them say, don't write anything, do it mathematically in your head, which is amazing because the conversations you guys have, goes on forever. You guys know that. And then we dive into a student task on IM through ASSISTments. And then I put them in the breakout groups for about 15 minutes, and I'm jumping in each group. And I usually have groups around 6 right now. And so I'll always, have, helpers now. But in the first couple of days, I always assign somebody, can you please pull up your assessments, and we'll walk through that first question together to give that the confidence for them. And now they always want to jump on it because they're getting the one participation point. And then we'll come back after 15 minutes and see where they are, and then we might do like a brain break. We go back and we do the rest of the lesson, and then they have to work on their own for the cool down, which ties in perfectly. So you get to get that immediate feedback, and then you get to teach, and then you get to have them do that one-on-one. We do skill builders. Those are challenges. We use Quizlet a lot live, which is amazing, and then Kahoot as well, especially for the Fun Fridays.
Great, thank you. I'd love to hear from the presenters as well, if there's anything, any one specific big challenge that you face, whether you're in the classroom as usual or during a distance learning environment now, that you'd like to share. Barbara, why don't we start with you? One of the biggest challenges that you think that you have to overcome initially with ASSISTments.
Initially, I think the biggest challenge I had was my ability to see students show their work. I'm a big stickler for come to the board and you do the problem, you teach the class, and I'm going to ask, where do we get that number from? How do we get this? Why are we having this total? What does this mean? And so virtually, you can't do that. So there is a feature in ASSISTments where students can show their work on a piece of paper and they can insert a picture. So I used ASSISTments for that as well once we went virtually on my independent practices, and had them hold up their paper and take that screenshot, so that way I can actually see them showing their work and not necessarily just clicking or asking for an answer, or after 3 times getting the answer.
Thank you. How about you, Joaquin?
Okay, I was just reading some of the comments, so I'll answer some of the comments first. Right now, our school is having a double block for math. Last year, it was about 90 minutes. Right now, it's almost 2 hours because of the way the schedule was, and we're really trying to push our language arts and math skills at our school. But then somebody had asked how I did the cool downs. The cool downs is part of IM, so if you just go to Illustrative Math, it'll open up. It'll have a whole chunk of cool downs by unit and by module, which are really, really nice. The thing that really I struggle with, I guess, from being in the classroom is the manipulatives, because I do teach to special education students, and they love the hands-on activities, they love the visuals. So with ASSISTments, I've really worked with, like Barbara just said, is that open-ended question where they're having things at home, daily items, objectives that they're going to play with, or they're like showing me little videos and taking pictures of different action things. Today we actually did a scale model of their foot, so they had to take their favorite shoe and they had to measure it from the heel to the toe and then draw around it, and then they got to color it and make it, the best shoe of all time. But just little things like that, you can have them put that picture right through, because I think on I think it was like unit 1, lesson 11 was tell the difference between these 2 feet with just estimating scale model. So you kind of have to think outside the box and do things like that with it.
Great. And one of your biggest challenges? Oh, I'm sorry, you already answered that. You said so much great stuff, I can't keep track.
That's the challenge. Finding them hands-on activities.
Yeah.
You got to be super creative. You got to reach out to your teacher community. I have so much friends in, all over the country. So I'm like, hey, what'd you guys try to do this week for this unit? So it's just being able to help each other.
Yeah, that is a great tip. And I think the ASSISTments Facebook user page is a great place to go. And then your curriculum user groups as well. How about you, Holly?
My struggle is I am a very people person. I want my kids in front of me. I want to, like Joaquin said, I love manipulatives. We're doing graphing right now on a coordinate grid with our 8th graders, and it's been a struggle because, you know, some of them have graph paper, some of them don't have graph paper. And so I saw one of the comments asking about graphing. What I would do is use Desmos and have the kids graph something on Desmos, and then take a picture of it using the snipping tool or a screenshot and upload that picture, save it to their Google Drive and upload that picture to ASSISTments, or copy and paste that picture in. That's been the one struggle, is getting kids used to using things that they're not used to using to. And if I don't give a shout out to Screencastify, if you haven't used Screencastify, people, you need to use it. It's an extension. You need to throw that on there and, you know, do your kids a little video every morning. If they don't get up and don't get on Zoom, you know, they're supposed to be on Zoom, but you have those children that sleep late and don't make it to their 9 o'clock class. But the kids, if you have Google Chromebooks, they can put Screencastify on there. And I have the kids explain to me what they did and send me a video. So I hear their voice and they talk me through a math problem. And that's awesome too. So just a shout out to Screencastify. It's 5 minutes for free. And you don't want to listen to a kid talk for a very long time anyway. So, I mean, you just want them to explain it. You don't want to listen to a full 5-minute snippet. Give me a minute and tell me what you did in a minute.
Awesome.
And
great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Some other people are agreeing with you on how great Screencastify is. Another question I have that didn't come up in the chat, but I'd love you guys to share is some people were asking in the chat about delete progress. Can you allow a student to start over from scratch? So I'd love to know your opinion on when you choose to allow a student to redo an assignment, and how early in the year would you start doing that? Let's start with Holly.
I want to go first because I feel like no one is perfect. And if they have tried that, if they ask me to redo it, then I'm going to let them redo it. But I'm going to go over a few things with them first. So it's the communication that you have with the children, and, you know, make sure that you're conferencing with them before you delete an assignment and have them redo it. Do a question with them first to get their understanding. Or I'll assign it, but assign a different, like if you assigned A, you know, practice A, then turn around and assign practice B and let them do practice B. That's just how I feel.
Great.
On that.
Thank you.
I'll reassign whatever. I re-quiz. I don't give the exact same quiz, but I re-quiz too. So
giving students lots of opportunities to show their understanding and success. Barbara, how about you?
Yeah, so I actually love that I could do that, because I would do that for students who thought they were getting over and just clicking through. Because for me, that's not helpful for me and it's not helpful for them. I can't see what you don't understand because you're not even giving me your best. And I can't help you understand what you don't understand because you're not showing me what you do understand. So when students would do that, instead of them rushing through and thinking that, okay, I'm done with it, I would kindly let them know, I'm going to go ahead and reset this, and I'm going to allow you a second opportunity to really show me what you know. This was also good for situations where students were struggling, or they had a misunderstanding, or they just simply did the wrong questions, or they got mixed up, especially with virtual learning when you had open-ended questions and you had multiple choice questions, or if those questions where, I know when we were doing equations and inequalities, sometimes they would have to type in an equation, and if they typed it in wrong or they misunderstood what they were supposed to do, that would be a great opportunity to reset it and allow them to do it over once I explained to them exactly what they were supposed to do.
Great, thank you. And Joaquin?
Yes, so when they are absent for like a whole week, and you just weren't able to reach out to their parents, or, you know, there was no communication, and then that Friday when they know the grades are going in, they just hit turn into everything and it's like 5 seconds a piece. Then I will delete all that progress and I'll reach out to them. And then the next day, hopefully they're in Monday because the school calls them. And then I have to reassign them all those lessons. And then I actually sit with them after I let the other kids go for tutoring. I usually give them about 10 minutes each day and I work with them one-on-one. That's been a really good help. But since they're working in a group for breakout, they're all writing their notes on a piece of paper. So if they click show answer by accident and then they email me about it, that might be something I can reassign. But it's really trying to get them all to be on the same question at the same time and working together and don't rush. Because if you get done before everybody else, you should be helping the other group finish their lesson as well that day.
All right, thank you. And we got about 5 more minutes, so let's wrap it up with this final question. And I'm glad somebody asked it. Somebody asked, what do you do with the scores that are generated in assessments? How do you translate to giving a grade for effort, for completion? Why don't we start with Barbara on this one?
So what I do is when I assigned it for homework, it was not a grade specifically, but depending on the class score. So if I see everyone did amazing and they knocked it out of the park, that would be a participation grade for me, because I can see that they worked really hard in class, paying attention to content. They've been doing what they needed to do and it showed on the homework that night. But as far as like taking a daily grade for it, no, I didn't use it for that because it can vary depending on how many attempts. And then I don't want to penalize them for trying because I want them to continue to try so that they grasp the concept. So if anything, I used it as a participation grade.
Absolutely. And you couldn't have said it more perfectly, Barbara, but just to kind of piggyback on that, ASSISTments doesn't, the scores that are generated are not intended to be used as report because they are so formative. We don't want to punish students for making multiple attempts. So we want to encourage them that, if you don't get it the first time and your score goes down, you keep on trying. Joaquin, what about you? How do you use those scores?
Okay, so I have like a beautiful recipe for this, and because the do now we already worked through together, so like they all should have the same answer because they're not allowed to put things in the do now yet or that first question of the lesson until we're all done and we all agree that this is the best solution at this time. So when we go into the lesson and we do the breakout group, they should all have that same answer. So then they work together. And then so after the lesson and the cool down, I look at them individually and as a group, like Barbara said, looking at the average score. Some of them don't even have a score because it's all open-ended questions. So I do the 60, 80, 100. So 60 is they were there that day. They didn't pass anything in. They just kind of just didn't do anything. And then I have to talk to them the next day about it. 80 is you did some stuff, but then you kind of maybe got up and left or your iPad was stuck and I have to talk to you. But then the hundreds are you finished your assignment, you worked really hard, you showed questions, you uploaded your picture, you had your understanding, and you finished your cool down.
Awesome, thank you. That's great. And we're finding through our Facebook group that there's teachers using different kind of rubrics of how they score students in their grade books depending on their effort level and completion rate. So that is wonderful. I'm sure you're sparking some imaginative rubrics with the teachers in the group. And Holly, you commented that it depends on what you're doing. So do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, it really does depend on what I'm doing. I am like Barbara, where my classwork grades like that are participation grades. So it's just 10% of their grade. It's not a lot. It's just putting forth effort. And again, it's classroom culture. I talk to the kids about that. I'm always reassigning stuff. So they have, if they don't like a 60%, they don't like that look, then we can talk about it and we can get better with it and I can reassign it. I can sit down and help you with it. Your partner can sit down and help you with it. It's all about building mindset. And, we are going to not always get everything right every single time, but we got to keep plugging. So yeah, I give a participation grade, but and not all the time. I'll take quizzes and give quiz grades on assessments. but the kids know that it's a quiz, and you can put it in test mode. And I put all my tests in Assistments, or I've had tests in Assistments, not all of them. And that too is on test mode.
All right, thank you. I think the theme here is when we're using formative work, we want to see what students know so teachers can adapt their teaching and really reach out to the students who need some extra support. All right, Brian, I think it is time to kind of walk through the rest of the presentation and do our closing remarks. Oh, Brian, you're on mute. We'd love to hear you.
Sorry. So just to wrap us up or bring us into the next section here, I just wanted to remind folks or share with folks, the test mode feature does not exist in 2.0 just yet. We are looking to add that sometime in the school year, but that does not quite exist in 2.0 yet. However, when it does exist, you'll be able to assign problems to students, and they don't get feedback. It's one and done, and it functions more like an assessment. And so with that, now that we've had a chance to hear from our presenters and hear all these wonderful ideas and all your questions, and I think it was just so great to hear all of these different perspectives shared. Every single question brought some additional context that may help to inspire those of you who are trying to get started this year. So we just want to go through a few basic tips for getting the best start with students and families. Tip number one is messaging to students and parents that the score from Assistments is not a grade. We kind of already addressed that somewhat. We have our parent letter template, and Barbara referenced that she uses that template herself. You can feel free to make a copy of this and customize it as you wish. We have some teachers who put a signature, parent signature section on it, so parents have to signify that they've actually read the letter, so you can take that and use it. Tip number two is making sure that you have a system that ensures students show their work. We have our student reflection form as an example, but you can do this in whatever method you feel comfortable with. Tip number three is making sure that the first few assignments and assessments are low stakes. We have our learning assessments practice problem set, but just in general, when you're first assigning to students, try to assign them problems that help them get used to the platform, and then as they get used to it, lean more into the sort of challenging problems that push their understanding. And then tip number four, model a clear protocol for open response questions. We have our video tutorial for students that shows them how to use the open response box, how to upload a picture, etc. So you can feel free to use that. But just really making sure kids are clear on your process. So if you're going to want kids to show their work within every possible problem, make sure they're clear on how do you take a picture, save it, and upload it into your open response box, right? And then finally, tip number five, start reviewing assignment data from day one. You heard from our presenters today that, in many cases, once they start students in assessments, they want to immediately share that data and start building the culture around sharing that data. We have a video that we share of one of our expert teachers, Andrew, sharing data with students remotely to give you an idea of what that can look like for you in this hybrid environment. And so just to sort of bring us toward a close here, I want to recap our key topics. Today, we overviewed what Assistments is. We learned all sorts of wonderful information from our teacher presenters. I want to thank Barbara, Holly, and Joaquin again for doing that. Folks got a chance to ask questions and learn more about how to get started and share ideas. And then we went through a few tips and ideas from Assistments that can help you as well. Before we close out, if you would, and Dawn is going to share the link to our survey in the chat, please take about a minute to complete our very short survey. We are a free service, and we depend absolutely on the feedback that we get from teachers who use our tool and come to our webinars to inform how we design our professional learning in the future and make changes. So as we wrap up today, if you would, go ahead and click that link and just respond to our quick feedback questions. Oh, and a quick note, you want to make sure that you choose the webinar Getting the Best Start with Students and Families in Class and from a Distance, and today's date, which is 8/26. So a few upcoming sessions we want to just share with you that are going to be happening in the next month or so. We are going to have our new user webinar part 1 on September 1st, and then again on the 15th. where you can come and get a review recap of the basics. We have our drop-in help session on the 7th and on the 21st. Those are a little bit less formal, but you can sign up and come and just chat with us and ask questions or hear from other folks that are asking questions. We have our new user webinar part 2, a deeper dive specifically around data. And that I think that's on the 8th, and it's also on the 22nd here. And then finally, on the 30th, we have our second in our series of targeted webinars focused around how to differentiate for diverse student needs using assessments. That will also be featuring 3 of our very experienced users to kind of share their perspectives. You can also visit our website for more resources, and for that, I'm just going to go live over here. Our Help Center has a variety of user resources that you can use to help get started. We have everything grouped thematically here to help you. You can also go to our FAQ for frequently asked questions, sign up for upcoming webinars, which I think most of you already did, and you can also see our webinar recordings in our webinar library if you want to come back to those and reference any of the material that you saw there. We have a variety of professional learning opportunities that teachers can use to get involved, certified educators, and all sorts of different things that you can take advantage of, and on-demand resources. And then you may choose to get involved. We have a variety of opportunities to help for teachers to get involved in our ambassador program, research that we're doing. We like to center and bring to the fore teachers' perspectives and what they want in terms of what we provide and the direction we're moving in with our platform. And then we have our blog, which features assessments experts, internal staff, teachers who kind of talk about assessments, and you may find some helpful resources there. In addition, you can join our Facebook user community to stay in touch. We have lots of teachers who go in there, ask questions. We make regular posts with useful information, and the more people there contributing, the better. You can sign up for a monthly newsletter. If you've signed up for your assessments account, chances are you probably already get our monthly newsletter. And then you can connect with us on our other social media. We are on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And then you can always email us at contact@assistments.org if you have any questions. Before we close out today, I just thought it would be useful for folks to just share one idea you learned today about getting started that feels most important or useful. So if you're comfortable, feel free to just share the thing that pops out to you or really comes to mind as we wrap up the session today. It might help inspire other people who are here. And Donna, I'll ask you if there's anybody sharing their thoughts.
Sure. I'm waiting. But I'll use this time to just remind everyone that you will get a follow-up email with the recording of today's webinar and the slide deck for you to review. Someone mentioned they love the idea of how our presenters shared how they use it in their own classrooms. Of course, it means so much more when you hear how teachers are using it at this moment with all the distance learning challenges as well. Mm-hmm. The report features. Using open response type questions to have students upload their work or a video of their work. Someone mentioned using assessments for warm-up and exit tickets. That must be a lesser of math user. Joaquin's success with I am in a distance learning setting, and I mentioned to everyone in the chat that joining one of the Facebook groups, hopefully you join our Assessments user community, which I linked in, or even the I am groups. I know that teachers really love to share how they're using the curriculum. We've got some props and claps to all the presenters today, and thank yous.
Awesome.
All right, emphasis on formative assessments. We can definitely appreciate that, using data to inform our next steps.
All righty, thank you, Dawn. So just again, if you would take just a moment to complete our survey, I'll have Dawn share the link in the chat again for those of you who may not have gotten a chance to do it yet. Just make sure that you put in today's date, 8/26, and you choose today's session, which was getting the best start with students and families in class and from a distance. And again, we really appreciate any feedback you can provide for us. We do use and take to heart all of the feedback that we receive, and we use that to develop all of our professional learning going forward. And with that, again, a thank you to everybody who attended, and a special thank you to our presenters, Holly, Barbara, and Joaquin. We could not have done this without you. And since this is the first session of this kind, they kind of worked with us and were super flexible to figure out how to make this work and be successful. And I think that it was. So again, very much appreciate those of you who presented and also everybody else who joined in to listen today. If you have any questions at all, again, you can reach out to contact@assistments.org, and we will be happy to respond.